the Tiara Club at Silver Towers. Princess Emily and the Wishing Star. Vivian, French, illustrated by Sarah Gibb. Hi! This is Princess Emily saying hello, and I'm so pleased you're here with us at Silver Towers. Charlotte, Katie, Daisy, Alice, Sophia and I have such a good time, except when horrid Princess Diamond and her twin sister, Gruella, try and spoil everything. Of course, we'd been keeping our fingers crossed for ages that we got enough Tiara points to win our silver sashes, but suddenly it was nearly time for the silver ball. And we began to panic, especially me. Chapter 1. Does being nervous ever make you do silly things? It does me. The silver ball was only a week away, and I was trying to keep calm, but it was so difficult. Honestly, every time I looked at a clock I could see the minutes disappearing. I couldn't stop thinking, will I have enough Tiara points? And that meant I kept getting things wrong. On Monday we had a lesson in cutting ribbons. Prince Dandino was in charge, and he told us to imagine we were cutting the ribbon to open a new library. Now, he said, everybody will be watching, so you must be perfect princesses. He marched across to the workroom cupboard and came back with a large pair of scissors and a length of colored ribbon. Princess Diamond and Princess Charlotte, please take one end each, and hold it tight. And we'll ask Princess Emily to be our first guest princess. Make your speech, Princess Emily, then cut the ribbon. We'd made up a speech for homework, but as I stood up my mind went blank. I began. That is. I'm very happy, Prince Dandino frowned. Emily, he said, if you haven't learnt your speech off by heart, please read it. Yes, Your Highness, I said, but as I picked up my bag I remembered where my homework was. On my bedside table. I felt so stupid. I'm very sorry, Your Highness, I mumbled. It's in Silver Rose Room. Prince Dandino sighed. Never mind. Let's see what Princess Diamond can do. Diamond looked so smug. She gave a perfect speech with no or ums at all. As she finished, she tried to cut the ribbon, but the scissors were too blunt. At once she whipped a tiny penknife from her pocket and cut the ribbon neatly in two. There, she said, and she turned to me. That's how to open a library. I've watched Mummy do it 100 times. Of course Diamond got loads of Tiara points. We could tell, because Prince Dandino whipped out his notebook, and while he wrote he kept saying how clever she was to bring her penknife. She was, too, because almost everyone else really struggled to cut the ribbon with the blunt scissors. Gruella tugged so hard she nearly pulled Sophia over. Only Princess Freya managed to cut it properly, and Prince Dandino nodded and scribbled down more points. Well done, he said. Those scissors are very blunt. But perfect princesses must be prepared for all kinds of difficulties. Emily, I'm afraid I must give you 2 minus points unless you can show me your speech by the end of the day. Class dismissed. As we trailed away down the corridor my friends tried to cheer me up. You'll be okay, Katie said, just take him the speech at lunch break. We all know you knew it really well. Alice patted my arm. I began to feel a little bit better, but when I took Prince Dandino my homework he gave me a sad shake of the head. It isn't like you to be so forgetful, Princess Emily, he told me. I hope you don't think that because it's nearly the end of term you don't have to try. That made me feel awful. What if I had almost got enough Tiara points to win my silver sash, but not quite? Was Prince Dandino trying to tell me something? Chapter 2. On Tuesday things weren't much better. Our head teacher, Queen Samantha Joy, says being a perfect princess is hard work and we need to keep fit. As well as princess exercises, we have games days. Usually they're great fun, but I was still worrying about Tiara points and I forgot my shoes. It was the first time I'd forgotten, and our school fairy godmother, she's called Fairy Angora, was very nice about it, but I had to sit and watch. It was so boring. What made it worse was that Diamond doesn't do games, and I had to sit with her. She spent the whole time telling me that games are for little kids, and making nasty remarks. Gruella's making such a fool of herself, she said. Mummy told us we were never to behave like hooligans, but just look at her. And look at Sophia! Her hair's so messy. I didn't answer, but Diamond went on and on until at last I got angry. I know I should have just ignored her, but I couldn't. She was being so mean. I said, and I suppose you think you're absolutely perfect. Well, I think you're stuck up and horrid. And at exactly that moment Fairy Angora came to see if we were all right, and she heard me. Oh, Princess Emily, she said, and she looked so sad. It's quite all right, Fairy Angora, Diamond said, and she sighed in a totally made-up way. I forgive Princess Emily. I know she's jealous, and I forgive her. Honestly, I could have screamed. Is that very awful of me? I'm sure perfect princesses never ever think like that, but I did. I had to take a huge gulp of air before I could say, thank you, Diamond. And I'm very sorry for what I said. Fairy Angora floated off to help Sophia hold the winning tape, and she didn't say anything else to me all the rest of the day. It made me feel even worse, because I just knew I'd disappointed her. That night I had a dream that I was trying to find my friends, but they had disappeared. In my dream I knew they'd gone to the silver ball without me because I didn't have enough Tiara points, and I kept hearing Fairy Angora saying, "Oh, Princess Emily," in such a sad way. On Wednesday our first class was etiquette and deportment. Queen Mother Matilda showed us how to welcome important visitors with sweeping curtsy and fluttering fan. When it was my turn to curtsy I could see Queen Mum Maddie looking at me, and I couldn't help remembering all the things that had gone wrong already that week. Something inside me knew she was expecting me to make a mistake, and I did. I wobbled, waved my arms, and fell flat on the floor. I felt dreadful. What was odd was that my friends didn't do much better. Alice got muddled and curtsied at the same time as Sophia, and they bumped heads, and then it turned out that Charlotte and Katie had both forgotten their fans. So we all ended up with only 1 point each. Diamond was the only one in the whole class who got 5. She was so pleased with herself she went round for the rest of the morning with her nose in the air. At lunchtime that day none of us from Silver Rose Room was very chatty. Even Alice didn't have much to say. "Are you okay?" Sophia asked. Alice put down her knife and fork and leant across the table. "I couldn't sleep last night," she whispered. "I kept having a nightmare that everyone went to the silver ball except me. Isn't that silly?" I stared at her. "But that's what I was dreaming." "Me too," Sophia said, and Daisy and Charlotte nodded. "I've been having that dream for weeks," Katie said, and she grinned. "I wish you'd told me. I thought it was only me." Chapter 3. Isn't it strange? When you find someone else is as worried as you, somehow it makes it better. What exactly happens if we don't have enough Tiara points? I asked. Alice shook her head. "I don't know. When my big sister was at Silver Towers everyone won their sashes." "I do wish we knew how we were doing," Charlotte sighed. "Fairy Angora always tells us when she gives us points, but Prince Dandino just writes them in his little notebook." "I'm sure Queen Samantha Joy doesn't always tell us either," Katie said. "She was watching us in assembly this morning, and when Diamond wouldn't let Freya share her songbook I'm absolutely certain she wrote something down." Just as Katie finished speaking, who should come into the dining hall but our head teacher? And Fairy Angora was with her. "My dear princesses," Queen Samantha Joy began, Prince Dandino and Queen Mother Matilda have informed me that many of you are finding it hard to concentrate on your lessons, and your work is suffering badly as a consequence. Honestly, I nearly fell off my chair. I could feel myself going crimson, and the most terrible thought zoomed into my head. Queen Samantha Joy was going to tell us we weren't invited to the silver ball. It is my suspicion that some of you are getting over anxious about your silver sashes, our head teacher went on. I would like to take this opportunity to promise that if you have worked hard and done your best, you have no need at all to worry. Now, I have spoken with Fairy Angora, and we have come up with an idea to help you to enjoy your last days at Silver Towers. Fairy Angora, would you like to explain? And Queen Samantha Joy sat down, her eyes twinkling. Fairy Angora was looking so excited. My little darlings, she said, we are going to have such fun. You are going to help with the preparations for the silver banquet and the silver ball. Lady Victoria Allpepper is, at this very moment, waiting in the lower hall to help you plan a banquet fit for emperors. Tomorrow we will organize the decorations and make Silver Towers look utterly gorgeous. On Friday we'll tidy up, and on Saturday we'll have a late breakfast because you'll be up very late on Saturday night. I can't tell you why, because it's a secret, but... Fairy Angora stopped and beamed. It has to do with wishes and a star. At once, everyone began to clap wildly except for Diamond. She was sitting behind me, and I heard her say, "Really, Gruella? Mummy doesn't pay for us to put up decorations. I certainly won't do anything so pathetic. Just because some people can't even curtsy doesn't mean we should be treated like servants." I knew she meant me to hear her, but I didn't turn round. I waited for Gruella to say something horrid as well, but she didn't. She said, "Actually, I think it sounds rather fun." Then she squeezed herself onto the bench in between Daisy and me. "You didn't mean to fall over when you curtsied, did you, Emily?" she said. I was so astonished. Daisy's eyes were wide, and Alice, Charlotte, Katie and Sophia were trying their best not to stare. "Can I be your partner when we're planning the banquet?" Gruella asked me. "Do say yes. I'm really brilliant at things like banquets. Mummies are just the best." Chapter 4. I felt so weird. For a moment I couldn't say anything at all. Ever since I've been at the Royal Academy I've had the same very best friends, and we've always done everything together. Diamond and Gruella don't usually want anything to do with us. They think they're much too grand, especially Diamond. But at that moment one of the princess rules floated into my head: perfect princesses never have favorites. They are equally kind to all they meet. "All right, Gruella," I said, and I didn't sound very enthusiastic, so I quickly added, "That'll be fun. I'd sort of promised Daisy and the others, but do please come and join us. We can all work together." Behind me Diamond said, "Oh. I see. Little Princess Emily is trying to get her own back by leaving me out. See if I care." And she flounced off on her own. That afternoon we had such a good time, even though Gruella was dreadfully bossy. We were allowed to choose all our favorite foods, and we designed the most amazing celebration cake. Of course the top was crowned with 7 silver towers. "Please, what did Fairy Angora mean about wishes and a star?" Gruella asked Lady Victoria as we were clearing up at the end of the lesson. Lady Victoria raised her eyebrows. "That," she said, "is a secret, as I'm sure Fairy Angora made clear." "But is it something nice?" Gruella wanted to know. "You'll find out on Saturday night," Lady Victoria said firmly. By the time Saturday actually arrived I'd almost forgotten about the surprise. Thursday and Friday had whizzed by, and none of us had had any horrible dreams. It was only on Saturday morning that we woke up with butterflies in our stomachs. When we sat down for breakfast Gruella was the only one who could eat anything. She was still insisting on doing everything with us, and I was almost getting used to her if only I hadn't had a niggling little feeling at the back of my mind. Why was she being so friendly? When we got up from the table, I saw Diamond sitting all by herself at the other end of the room. Is she okay? I asked Gruella. Oh yes, she said loudly. Diamond's fine, and she put her arm through mine. Doesn't she mind you leaving her all on her own? I asked. Isn't she lonely? Gruella sniffed. Serves her right. She always thinks she's best at everything. She looked over her shoulder at Diamond and sneered. Well, she isn't best at making friends. And she tried to march me out of the dining hall. Just a minute, I said, and I slipped back to Diamond. Diamond, I began, I know we haven't always got on very well, but if you want to sit with us at the banquet we'd be very pleased to have you. No thanks, Diamond said, without looking up. Well, if you change your mind, you can, I said, and I left her sitting there. Chapter 5. As we got changed into our beautiful dresses for the silver banquet that evening, I kept thinking about Diamond. Even as Charlotte helped me do up my dress, it was utterly gorgeous sea green silk with a zigzaggy hem. I couldn't really concentrate. What are you dreaming about? Charlotte asked me. I was thinking how lucky I was to have friends, I said slowly. And how Diamond doesn't even have Gruella anymore. Charlotte gave me a hug. You'd be sorry for a lonely slug, Emily, she told me. Come on, put your shoes on. Even though we'd helped to decorate the dining hall, we couldn't help gasping as we walked in for the silver banquet. The walls were hung with glittering silver ribbons, and there were rows of candles shining on every table. The celebration cake looked amazing, and a tiny bright star was circling round and round the tallest tower. It was so magic. We almost forgot to be nervous as we ate the delicious puddings and pies and peaches and cream, and it was only as we left the dining hall to process to the silver ballroom that the butterflies began to flutter in our stomachs again. Will they call us in by name? Alice whispered as we walked slowly and steadily 2 by 2 down the long marble corridor. I don't know, I whispered back. Oh, Alice. What if? She said. Remember what Queen Samantha Joy said. Then we were at the doors of the ballroom and Queen Samantha Joy was waiting in the doorway. As we walked in, she handed us each a silver sash, and we curtsied. I could hardly manage to whisper a thank you, I was so surprised. Once we all had our sashes, we were asked to stand quietly while Queen Samantha Joy swept up to the stage. Good evening, my very dear princesses, she said. Welcome, and please listen carefully. At midnight we will climb the stairs to the top of Silver Towers, and we will hold hands as we wait for the wishing star. If it comes, and I very much hope that it will, then and only then you will truly be able to say that you have won your silver sashes. At once there was a babble of voices. Queen Samantha Joy held up her hand for silence. While we wait, let's enjoy ourselves. Please take your partners for the first dance of the silver ball. The musicians burst into a wonderfully jolly tune, and Gruella grabbed Daisy and whizzed her onto the dance floor. Alice and Charlotte and I danced together, and Sophia and Katie twirled past us at dizzying speed. It was fabulous! We danced, and we were almost breathless by the time the music stopped, and Queen Samantha Joy announced that the time had come to go to the top of Silver Towers. As we climbed up and up the spiral staircase, we were silent. There was something very important and serious in the way Queen Samantha Joy strode in front of us, and we felt the same when we finally reached the rooftop. Somehow it felt as if there was going to be a very special and solemn ceremony. A huge moon was turning the world around us silver, and it was so quiet. Prince Dandino and Fairy Angora beckoned to us with their fingers on their lips, and we tiptoed into a circle. Princesses of Silver Towers, Queen Samantha Joy said in a hushed whisper. Please take each other's hands. Make sure that nobody is left out, or the wishing star will not come to us. It was almost scary. We were wide-eyed as we held hands, and I was really pleased when Charlotte gave my fingers a squeeze. Gruella was on my other side, in between Alice and me, and even she was looking anxious. Are we ready? Queen Samantha Joy asked. Everyone nodded, and then I saw Diamond. She was standing all by herself in the dark shadows. Her arms were firmly folded, and she was staring at Gruella with such an angry look. Angry and lonely. Fairy Angora had already begun to count in her soft, sweet voice. 10, she said. 9. 8. I made up my mind. Quick! I whispered to Gruella, and I half pulled and half dragged her as I slipped behind the circle and ran to Diamond. 7. 6. Across the circle I saw Charlotte and Alice close the gap we'd left. 5. 4. Gruella! Take her hand! I knew I was hissing, but I had to make Gruella understand. 3. 2. Please! I said, and I pushed us into the circle. I kept tight hold of Gruella and snatched Princess Lisa's hand, and as Gruella took Diamond's hand, Fairy Angora said, 1. For a moment there was nothing. Nothing except the silvery moonlight. Chapter 6. The whole sky lit up as the wishing star zoomed down. Round and round the top of the tower it flew, round and round until it exploded into a million tiny stars. They were everywhere. They twinkled in the air, in our hair, and on our dresses, but most of all they sparkled and shone on our silver sashes. There was a glorious fanfare of trumpets, and our teachers clapped and cheered. Well done, princesses! Queen Samantha Joy boomed. Well done indeed! Wear your sashes and be proud. And one last thing, don't forget to make a wish before you leave the tower. A wish! As I hurried towards my friends, an idea popped into my head. Before I had time to change my mind, I said out loud, I wish Diamond was as happy as me. Well wished, Princess Emily. Queen Samantha Joy was beside me, with Fairy Angora. Well wished indeed. And, as our star pupil, would you like to lead us down the stairs and back to the silver ballroom? Star pupil? I gasped. Of course, Fairy Angora said. Just look at your sash. I looked down, and I could hardly believe what I saw. My sash was covered in stars. Dear Princess Emily, Fairy Angora said with such a sweet smile, you have the heart of a perfect princess. It's easy to be friends with those we love, but to make friends with an enemy is truly admirable. As I looked at Alice and Charlotte and Sophia and Katie and Daisy, I could see they had starry sashes too. Only Diamond had no stars at all, but she didn't seem to mind. She was laughing and laughing at something Gruella had said, and she really did look happy. That night, as we sank into our beds in dear Silver Rose room, our sashes sparkled in the dark. Wow, Charlotte said sleepily, what an evening. Yes, Alice agreed. But it would have gone so wrong if it hadn't been for Emily. 3 cheers for Emily, Daisy said. Hip hip dash, hang on a minute, I interrupted. If we're going to have 3 cheers, I know what it's got to be for. It's got to be 3 cheers for friends, for the best friends ever. So that's what we cheered for. And did we cheer for you too? Of course we did. P.S. See you next term at Ruby Mansions.